real estate management with Sage Intacct. We still have a few folks that are dialing in, but we'll get started in a moment. Okay, let's get started by introducing our presenters. I'm Kevin Shives, your host, and also a partner in the consulting group here at Sensiba. My responsibilities include helping our clients by deploying our resources and expertise with our technology offerings. With me today is Tom Aker. Tom is our senior solutions consultant. He has extensive experience in accounting and ERPs, and he's specifically a subject matter expert with the cloud-based financial systems. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Kevin. Good to be here.
Yeah, great. Also joining us today is Perry Levine. Perry's career has afforded him the opportunity to work and be involved in pretty much every aspect of the real estate business, including accounting, property management, development, leasing, acquisitions, dispositions, and financing. And of course, along the way, Perry has used all the varieties of real estate focused accounting and property management software. So we are very excited to have Perry join and bring his unique perspective and expertise to our topic today. Welcome, Perry.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
All right. So for our agenda today, and I've already covered the panel participants, but also I'll spend a little time in the coming slides just introducing our firm. And then next, I'm going to talk about some of our favorite aspects of the Sage Intacct solution. And also in this section, Tom will take us into the Sage Intacct platform and show you a few things that have improved the lives and businesses of so many of our clients. And then we'll turn it over to Perry. And Perry, he's going to take us specifically into the real estate solution with Sage. And then finally, of course, we're going to save a few minutes for Q&A at the end. And just a reminder to everyone, this webinar is being recorded, and everyone who registered will receive our deck and a link to the recording. Okay, let's dive in. So our firm overview. So SSF is a full service accounting, consulting, and advisory firm. You know, we've been in business for over 40 years. We currently have offices in Northern California and Oregon and serve clients across the US and internationally. We are also one of a handful of accounting firms that is B Corp certified, a designation that indicates we strive to balance purpose and profits. You can find out more about that on our website at ssfllp.com. We're helping a lot of other businesses to attain this certification. And if you're interested in something like that, by all means, reach out to us. Now, specifically within our consulting group, we focus on technology solutions. And here's where we partner with best-in-class software publishers to help our clients manage their businesses in a more effective and efficient way. Some of our current platforms are shown here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Similarly, with our internal audit and SOX offerings, we help our clients design, document, test, evaluate, and improve their processes and procedures. This can be an engagement as small as documenting a payroll process or as large as implementing full internal controls for a newly public company. And then we have outsourced accounting. Just like the service name implies, clients engage with us to perform some or all of their accounting function so they can focus on their core business. And also under this umbrella, we provide family office support and advisory. So if you have questions about any of these, please reach out. My contact information will be at the end of this deck. Okay, so I wanted to share some of my favorite things about the Sage solution here before we get to the product itself. So Sage's native cloud. It was born on the internet in 1999. In fact, a little trivia here, Intacct, the word Intacct is actually means internet accounting. So that's how much of a cloud company they've been. And something to keep in mind here, there's nothing for you to manage at your company level, no servers in your office or IT management required. Sage handles all of that. And also Sage keeps the platform fresh with quarterly updates. Everyone on Sage Intacct is always on the same version. We love that, really helps with support. And is always up and ready to handle your user needs. And another one of my favorite things about the modern solution is that it's an open API platform. Essentially, that means it plays well with other software. In fact, over 200 partners, other best-in-class software vendors, have gone through the process to join the Sage Intacct marketplace. These partners have built integrations with Sage Intacct that makes your life easier when you have a specific need related to expenses, payroll, and much, much more. This slide here, I often call my NASCAR slide, but it's really a snapshot of some of the logos in this marketplace that I'm talking about. We work with many of these partners so we can help our clients reach their goals with Sage Intacct and beyond. G2 is a leading customer review site for business software, and they rank Sage Intacct #1 in customer satisfaction, and they've done this since 2015. This is super important to us as a firm because our client satisfaction with our solutions and our consulting is our #1 concern. The Sage Intacct solution is the only one preferred by the AICPA, the organization that literally wrote the book on accounting. Every US-based company follows their standards, and they have over 400,000 members who've seen and used pretty much every accounting system out there. Of all the systems they've used, ours is the only one they prefer. They've not provided this endorsement to any other solution. Tom, I think it's time for us to pull back the curtain and show everyone this modern look and feel of Sage Intacct.
All
I'm going
right.
to stop sharing.
Well, I'm going to start sharing. Let me get the right desktop here. Okay, can you see my Sage Intacct dashboard now? Okay. So welcome everybody to the Sage Intacct product. I am bringing us into Intacct here in the dashboard for the VP of Finance. And now Sage Intacct has many ways that a user can set their preferences to show up in Sage Intacct. And when I land in Sage Intacct, I like to land on a dashboard because it lets me see exactly the things that I want to see. My dashboard can be customized to my purpose. And you'll see, for instance, that I am on a role-based dashboard here, and I can have different dashboards for all the different roles of users in my system. So when I land in the dashboard here, I can see a couple of things right away. One is that I know I'm in a multi-entity company. And the reason I know that is that for one thing, I have this button here that says top level. And when I click on it, I can see all of the different entities that I can transact inside this Intacct company. So instead of having to jump around between different accounting files, I get to work at a top level, or I can drop into one of these entities. And if I pick one, it's just going to open up a new tab with the data specific to that one entity. An important thing here is that a given user can be restricted to one or more entities, or they could be given access to the top level and all of the entities below it. Another way that I can tell that I'm in a multi-entity company here is that if I look at this balance sheet summary right here, you can see that I have all these different entities across, including my property management company and an elimination column here to, so when I report on an overall basis, I don't double count any internal revenues and expenses. So we'll get into that in a minute here, but I also want to show you some of the other features of this dashboard. One of the most powerful things about Sage Intacct, besides its great user interface, is its capabilities with custom reporting. And a lot of that revolves around the use of account groups. For instance, when we look at a balance sheet or a P&L, we have a roll-up of accounts that go into groupings such as current assets and overall total assets. And those account groups are a defined hierarchy, which means that we can easily create custom reports by just picking the top level of that hierarchy, and it pulls in all of the detail below it. Also, we can use account groups to create what we call performance cards. So that's what I have across the top here. And it just enables me to get a quick, easy look at my key indicators. And those could be financial, like we're looking at here, or you can also put in operational metrics and view those as performance cards or in reports. And you can combine financials with statistics and get a calculation to give you percentages and ratios that you can use in your performance cards. Now, each of these performance cards here, as I said, is based on a financial account group, which means that I can just click on one and it will take me to a little mini report that supports that information. So I can see right here that I have what my variance is from month to month in this rental income. And if I look here, this is showing me that difference. So I can see quickly whether I've gone up or down on a given performance indicator. Now, I mentioned that we use these account groups and dimensions in our financial reporting. And that's what we're looking at here. So in this case, these entities, our holding companies, are dimensions. And so we're reporting by accounts here and by dimensions here. And besides the dimensions for entity and location, we also have standard dimensions for customers, for vendors, for departments, and for class. And any of those can be used to the specific needs of a given company, but those are coming standard right out of the box. Besides having standard reports, we can also build dashboard charts off of those dimensions. And we can actually use those to drill into specific companies by just clicking on the piece of the chart that reports on it. So there again, I've got another pop-up financial report, and I can see not only what's making up that element in the chart, but I can click on it and drill into the underlying GL detail and see exactly what made up a given expense. And if I, for instance, these are AP bills, and if I click into one of these, it'll actually bring up the AP bill itself, and I can see how it was applied. And if I wanted to, I could have the actual PDF of the bill attached right here. And so I have a full audit trail available to me coming right from that graph that I was looking at in my dashboard. Now, I talked a little bit about using that management company, and I want to show you a bit about how these inter-entity relationships can work. So I'm going to expand on this inter-entity reconciliation here, and you can see that I have the Falcon Ridge Property Management has receivables from the other entities, and those other entities have due tos down here to that Falcon Ridge Property Management. Now, I'm going to jump over to another window here and show you how we can post these. So we have a source entity, the corporate management entity is billing out the costs for property management to these other locations. So we have pretty straightforward journal entry here. We've got a credit to Falcon Ridge Property Management and then debits on those other entities. But of course, all those entities need to balance in their own books. So what Sage Intacct does is it automatically, when I created that journal entry, added all of the balancing entries in order to make each entity's set of books match. And that is how we are getting those inter-entity transactions that are populating this sheet here. And then, as you can see, we can use the domestic consolidations module in Sage Intacct to eliminate those when we're looking at the company as a whole. So that's an overview of the financial reporting. You can see we have a terrific user experience here in Sage Intacct. That was one of the things that drew me to it in the first place when I first saw it several years ago. But in addition to that, without going into a lot of it, we have many add-on modules and a lot of standard modules, including cash management, where we can set up all the credit cards and checking. We can book all of the transfers, and we can reconcile both banks and credit cards with Sage Intacct, including getting the bank feeds and automating, sometimes fully automating our monthly reconciliations of those accounts. With that, I am going to wrap up sharing here and let you, I'm going to turn it over to Perry to show you some of the awesome capabilities of our real estate module.
Yeah, actually, Tom, I'm going to share my screen. Perry's got a few slides here, and I'll run that.
Thank you, Kevin.
Give me just a second.
Nice.
You know that background.
Thank you, everyone. Great. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Kevin. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I work with Zone 220, which is the ISV that has brought to market Sage Intacct Real Estate. And I always want to start off with what we do. And that is this solution has been created to give owners and operators of real estate a 360-degree view of the financial and operational facets of all your assets. And it allows you to capture your revenue opportunities, monitor and communicate your performance, whether that's to a because you're a third-party fee manager or other owners or investors. Of course, it's all about increasing your property and portfolio value, and of course, growing your business. One of the advantages, of course, of Sage Intacct is that it's scalable. So can we go to the next slide, please? So the question is, how do you do that? It's a scalable solution, as I just said. So there's a lot of solutions out on the market. There's products out there that you have to start off with one, and then if your business grows, you have to buy another version of their software. That's not the case with Sage Intacct. Fortunately, the product is very robust and it allows you to grow. So this is a scalable solution that grows with your business. As you could see by what Tom was showing, it helps drive workforce efficiency with state-of-the-art technology and provide unmatched reporting capabilities for stakeholder communication, all for a lower total cost of ownership. Let's move to the next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the issues that are in real estate today and how SIRE, as we'll call the acronym, addresses those issues. So what we're hearing from our clients, I've been doing this for a long time. My experience has included time with Yardi, RealPage, MRI, and I started my technology career with Timberline, now known as Sage CRE. So I've been in front of a lot of clients and prospects over the last 10, 12 years, and lots of the same issues come up. So what's that? We're talking about information, okay? Whether it's outputs or inputs, the fact is that reporting to stakeholders, big deal. And you know, who are those stakeholders, right? We'll get into that. Information silos are a big deal as well. Employee satisfaction. In fact, we were recently on a call where a client made the comment to her executive committee who was in the room. We were just talking about trying to recruit, hire, retain, and nurture talent. And then, of course, employee satisfaction means when you're using a solution, how easy is it to use? How easy is it to navigate? And how long does it take to learn the product that comes into the door? Increasing portfolio value. If you're in any level in the real estate business, you know that it's not just about getting your rent statements out. It's making sure that your systems correspond with the investment objectives of the owners. And most of the time, we need to increase our net operating income and increase our cash flow, which of course, when you increase your NOI, you're going to increase the value of your property and your portfolio. And finally, tenant or resident relations, depending on whether you're on the commercial side or on the multifamily side. And of course, I'll always go back to lease administration. Next slide, please. So what are we talking about for information? Information transparency. So there's a lot of opacity that is in technology, right? We get information in, we have divergent systems. Well, we want to make sure it's easy for people to see information. Reporting to stakeholders. It used to be stakeholders were usually just management, and then it became management and owners, and then it became management, staff, owners, and investors. And now it's the lender requires a financial statement and a rent roll at the end of every quarter. Vendors have become stakeholders. Tenants are definitely stakeholders if you do expense recoveries, right? They don't believe that you actually spent money on expenses, and then you need to validate that. A big issue in a lot of organizations, not just real estate organization, are information silos. Property managers are not talking to accountants and vice versa. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And of course, data accuracy and data redundancy. Lots of people are doing things outside of their systems. They're using Excel or Word to do reporting. And then, of course, trying to get that information and backward and forward. So it's very important that that's tracked. Information output is key. And, you know, you take a look at this slide. I like to use this because being able to provide information in a form and format for the user is important. Some people will see, when they look at this, they'll see good. Some people will see evil. I see both because maybe I've done this so many times, but how we interpret that data is very important. So when you send information to an investor or to an owner, how do they want to see that information? It's got to be in a form and format that they can utilize that's good for them. When I was running a property management company, I had an investor, and if he required that information to be on purple paper with yellow crayon, I was running over to the stationery store, right? Because that's what's important for them. So we'll talk a little bit about being able to see that data. And hopefully when Tom showed you that dashboard, you realized about the simplicity of getting information, but the ability to drill down and see that information the way you need to see it. Next slide, please. Employee satisfaction. This is so important. Now, you know, the information, the industry is graying out. I mean, nobody grows up now going, gosh, when I grow up, I want to be a property manager. It's not a glamorous business. When I first got into real estate in 1982, everybody wanted to be in real estate. It was like, that's where you go. Now it's not that way, especially if you're in Northern California, people want to do technology. So how do you do it? How do you recruit talent when technology is important to the user? We've got a whole generation that didn't grow up on paper and pencil, right? They get everything off their phone. I think we all do now, right? So you have to have the proper technology in order to satisfy the employees that come to work for you. I've heard from many clients that they've lost talent simply because of the fact that the technology that they were using wasn't up to date. The user interface wasn't good. It was old. And we've got a whole generation that's used to using information off their phone. And of course, as you expand your business, how easy will it be to retain or train that talent? And I always go back to this Aruba network study that showed that employees that were fully enabled by technology were 51% more likely to have strong job satisfaction. Because if it's easy for people to use, they will use it and they'll be happy with what they're doing. Let's move on to the next slide. Of course, increasing in portfolio value. how do we maximize all revenue opportunities? Are you capturing everything? I'm sure there's people on the phone, you've missed a rent increase, or you've were unable to capture everything in an expense recovery. So that's what we're gonna talk a little bit about that when we go in and take a look at our solution set. It's about increasing NOI. Of course, NOI is two components. We've got revenue and expenses. And so if I can lower my expenses or control and monitor the spend, as we'll say, as well as increase all revenue opportunities, I'm going to increase my NOI, which of course increases the value of our property. So we know that we have to get NOI up to the maximum amount because it will increase the value. And that's all that we're doing, right? That's what's important to our investors, is that they're going to get the internal rates of return that we projected. And our final slide. Tenant or resident relationships. We all know happy tenants are good tenants. Happy tenants don't move, right? And we know how expensive it is. If you're in the multifamily world, we've got to re-rent it. We have to make it ready, right? You have to go in there and turn the unit over. It's hard for our team to manage the leases if the information isn't there and available to them. And don't forget, our tenants are stakeholders, so we want to have proactive communication with them. We want to have data that's accurate. You know, there's nothing worse than a tenant or a resident that has been charged a late fee because things weren't done properly or in a timely manner. So these are all very, very important aspects of the way we're going to do our business. So let's go in and take a look at our solution. Can I share my screen now? Hopefully, thank you. There we go, screen 2, share. Can you see my screen? I'll take anyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Going well.
Of course, I'm starting on a dashboard also, and my dashboard's not as robust as Tom's. But you know, I always like this too, because let's face it, it's easy on the eyes, and I can drill down, and people need to see information up ahead of them. And of course, I did my CFO dashboard, and so this is mine. I'm going to go into the real estate side, and we're going to start here. And now I'm going to kind of float around a little bit about, you know, information and employee satisfactions and NOI and tenant relationships, because there's so much to see here. So let's start off with lease administration, okay? Because without the proper review of leases and the proper inputs into the system, because you got to abstract your lease right into the system, it gives you the ability to track that information. And this is relatively easy. We're starting off on this screen, and it shows us our shortcuts and our tasks. And of course, here is leases. It's right here in front of me. And when I go in, you can see I've got, again, we got information silos. This is a just a view, and I'll show you a custom view in a second, but I can get this information, and now I've got the ability to see, and I can sort here any way I want. I can input information here by property, by unit, etc. I have the ability to move this information around if I need to, but I'm going to go right here to Edward Jones, and I'm going to go in. And now what's important here, there's a ton of information. Again, like I'm abstracting the lease. The key takeaway, I can have multiple tenants on a lease, and I can also have multiple units on a lease, which is different than a lot of the other solutions out there, because this is how it's done in real life, right? We don't tell people how to run their businesses. What we want is to have a solution set that allows you to run your business the way you do. Now, a lease, I could have 14 tenants in a building and 13 different leases, right? So how you do your leases is your business, right? What's our important dates here? Starts, ends, move-ins. I've got recurring charges. I can add as many recurring charges as I need. I'll put in property tax. Let's say it's an expense recovery, right? Maybe it's a single net lease. But when I go in here and I can put in my schedule of charges, right? So you'll have step increases, and I can put them down here for whatever the term is. So maybe my frequency is going to be weekly, biweekly, or a one-time charge. Maybe they're going to use the parking lot. It's a retail center and they want to use the parking lot for an event. So you can charge them that one off. Or maybe it's parking because you do an office. Whatever the case may be, you have the ability to change or add what you need. And then when it comes down to my property tax, of course, it's an expense recovery. I'm going to go over here to my recovery settings. I have been in presentations where the client has asked some very specific things, and I've seen it where we had to prove how a session is done and discovered that they had missed a $50,000 charge for a very a Class A apartment, a Class A office building in downtown San Francisco. That's a lot of money, right? I mean, even if you miss $10,000 in an expense recovery, yeah, you might eat it because of the fact that yes, you have paid it already, so you might be considered a sunk cost. But at a 5% cap rate, that $10,000 equates to $200,000 in value. That's a lot of money, right? I mean, $10,000 is a lot of money too, but 200,000, that's a lot. So being able to capture all of your expense recoveries in one place makes it extremely easy to follow up. And let me tell you, having done my expense recoveries on an Excel spreadsheet, there's nothing worse when you miss that line item and then have to go back to the tenant and say, oops, I'm sorry, but we made a mistake. Then they're unhappy and then they don't trust you. And then you're spending hours soothing the unhappy tenant. Here you've got a lot of accuracy all in one place. You can put all of your information on a single line. You can base your calculations and your admin fees in one place. I've got my calculation controls. So if you're doing increase over base, not a problem at all. And do we have caps and floors and gross ups all here in one place? You can set up multiple templates. So let's say your leases all have the same basic language, and now you've got to just control your one-offs. So when you're doing your setup, you can set up a template and just put it in at the proper level for each lease. So it could be by property, it could be lease type, it could be by tenant type, right? Whatever works. So, you know, maybe your restaurants don't pay trash, right? Because they have their own rubbish containers. So you can add your templates, you can have unlimited templates, and you can drop it in. And of course, it makes it easy for setup. And let me tell you how important that is to your employees when they're doing their setup. This is, again, one of those employee satisfaction things. If you make your employees' jobs easier, they're happier, right? And happy employees don't leave. So from here, you can see we have late fees. So you can have unlimited late charges, and we'll do multiple types. So you can have a set amount. Maybe it's a percentage followed by a daily, or a daily and then a percentage, whatever the case may be. We can have unlimited deposits here as well. You can add checklists. So maybe you have a start lease checklist. Again, this is again, your employee satisfaction, but this is also your tenant relationships, because if you have a set way that you're doing it, it's uniform across your portfolio or across a particular property. That means there's nothing that's missed, makes it easier for your employees. And it means that your tenants are going to get the attention that they need when you're going through the process. There's nothing worse than a tenant that doesn't have the executed lease, or they didn't get the keys. So you want to make sure that everything's there in your checklists. Of course, I'd say insurance is probably one of the three things property managers hate. We do budgets are terrible, expense recoveries, awful, and then chasing tenants down for their insurance certs. Well, you can track all of your insurance certs. We give you unlimited. We've added a few here that are come out of the box, but you can add what you need. We're also going to track the encumbrances that are associated with the lease. So if there's a right of first refusal for another space, or if they have an option to renew, you'll be able to track that as well. And then finally, We do have attachments. I get this question all the time. What if I want to attach the lease here? No problem. You can put the lease, the as-built plans, their certificates of insurance or certificate of occupancy, or whatever else you need for maintaining the lease. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. So I'm going to move on up to, let's go to the property. We have a limited amount of time. You can probably tell I have a lot to say about this, right? So here's my building information. And again, I can sort, I can have unlimited properties on here. I can sort it based on whatever my needs are. So if I could go by property name, you can just hit that. Here, I'm going to go to my 5512 building. And again, this looks very familiar to the lease information. One of the advantages, and you'll notice this when, hopefully you noticed this when Tom was doing his presentation, there's a lot of uniformity in the Intacct, the Sage Intacct world. We like it so that when you do your setups, whether it's for a new property or a new entity, a new bank account, whatever the case may be, it's easy to do. Again, it's about employee satisfaction. The easier it is for our employees to do their jobs, the happier they're going to be. And we did that when we created the real estate product, so that you don't have, there's not a long learning curve, right? We try to flatten it out so it's common sense. You can see all of our tabs across here as you go through it. Here's my property information. And so if you do vacancy loss, and multifamily does that a lot. So I got vacancy loss here. Some organizations straight line rents, we do that as well. I'll say that in my years of doing technology, I've demonstrated straight line rents 5 times. So if you're that on that accounting thing, we do it. Our addresses, our square footage. We'll get to the unit level, but our square footages can change, right? And that changes the denominators and the numerators when it comes to our expense recoveries. We're going to do that by date. So if you, let's say you build an outpad on a shopping center plot of land, and it adds 1,000 square feet, we're going to handle that for you. What kind of charges do you have for this particular property? So this is customized by property. Again, easy setup. It's good for your tenants because then they're getting what they're expecting, and it's good for your employees again because it's easy for the setup. What kind of deposits can we expect at this property? Late charges as well. And of course, we expect you're not in this business for charity. Well, you might be, of course. We do have not-for-profits that do this, but we'll be able to track all your management fees as well. You can set up your checklists for the property, so it drops down to each of the individual leases. Your tax information, of course. If you're in California, we know that the state of California wants their piece of pie. Fortunately, California is pretty good because we know that it's always going to be the same when we buy a new property. I manage properties in Texas, and they use a dartboard for their tax assessments. So there wasn't one property I ever owned in Texas that I didn't have to go and appeal the tax ruling. We're going to track all of our insurances here. And of course, we're going to keep attachments at the property level as well. What's that mean? So I've got my insurance certificates for the property. Maybe I've got my management agreement attached to the property. Any permits, certificates of occupancy for the property level. So whatever you may need, it's here at the property level. When I go over to the unit, of course, this is one of those things that makes me all goose pimply because I want to know my square footage changes, right? This is where I go, of course, because in commercial, units move, right? Walls move. I could start off when I do my development. I'm going to have a footprint. I'll have 10,000 square feet on the floor, and then I might break it up into 1,000 unit. Well, I'll get 1,000 square foot units and 1,000 square feet for common area space, whatever the case may be. And of course, when I'm looking at my property, I could have multiple types of square footage as well. Maybe I've got rentable and usable because my expense recoveries are going to be, could be based on either one of those. So when I'm at the unit, what kind of unit is it? I can, again, user defined. What's the address, etc. I'm going to track my market rent. If I'm in multifamily, I may want to add amenities. And then of course, what's the status move in or move out, so I know. And of course I can report on any of this. I can add additional units here, additional square footage, and of course, attachments. Again, maybe I want to put my as-built plans or permits at the unit level. Again, we're not going to tell you how to do your business, but we're going to give you all of the tools that you need to run your properties the way you need to. Okay, well, you know, I was, let me go to the tenant side now, because again, you can have multiple tenants in a unit. So you want to track that information. What the key here is that those tenants are associated with accounts receivable, because that's who's going to get the bill. So if I go in here we'll go to Marty's Hair Care Center, and Marty has basic name. Why are we keeping an email? Because we can email out to the tenants. We have that functionality, which of course saves a ton of time. I can duplicate. So again, if you have, when you do your setups, my properties, my units, my tenants, my leases, I have the ability to duplicate things. And the reason for that, easy setup. It makes it easy for my team to get on board a new property or a new tenant, no problem. Again, employee satisfaction is very important to us as a vendor. Let's cancel out of here. And I'm going to go to, from here, one of the things I like to show, because I think it's important, is the ability to do things, because having worked at the other people out there, the other providers, being able to do custom documents are really important. And why is this important? I may have one credit tenant, and you know what I'm talking about, though. Maybe it's a big box, it's a Home Depot or a Lowe's, or one of the people out there, one of the tenants out, LabCorp, if I'm on an office property, they may require custom invoices. So I have the ability to do custom invoicing. So I can email out an invoice that has just what's important to that particular tenant, and having custom invoice capability is very important for those particular tenants. And again, the reason why I point this sort of thing out is because the other people who are out in our space, they don't do custom invoices, or you can get a custom invoice, but you're going to have to pay extra for it. But here you can do it yourself. Again, for us as a provider of a robust solution, we want you to have the ability to do things on your own, because that's really important. You can see here, one of the other things, and I think this is really cool, custom fields. Now, people, oh yeah, you know, custom fields, user-defined fields. So I thought this was really cool, because, you know, if I want to add something, I can. So here I'm gonna add. So I'm gonna show you how easy it is. Again, if it's easy, my team is going to want to use the solution that I have. I'm asking them to use, right? So if I don't, again, we think we're providing a full solution, but what if there's something that you want to add, right? There's something you want to track. So, you know, what I'm going to do is you get access to all the fields here. I'm going to go to vendor. I'm going to add. Look at this. Look at how easy this is. I'm going to next. Okay, what do I want? Let's do a text box. But look at all of the things I've got here: currency, date, email, etc. And then next, what am I going to call it? Let's call it specialty, because I'm a developer, right? And I have people that I've got an air conditioning person that does my installations of new HVAC units, but I may have someone who just services them, and they may be different, right? Because maybe I buy a property and I'm not using the same vendor. So I want to have that a specialty there. So I'm going to put 25, and then I'm going to go to my next here. So I can add that it's required. I can put it where it goes. I could put it on a tab, or I can create my own tab. So I'm going to go specialty here. Done. Okay. So now you can see it's here. Now, when I go over here to my vendor, accounts payable, And I'm going to look at my vendor list. Okay, here's my vendors. So let's say, let's just go to A1 Electric. I'll hit edit. There's my specialty, right? How about that one? Let's do construction only. So you see how easy that was? I mean, I didn't have to do it. I'm not a programmer. I'm a real estate guy. So I can save this. Now for the people on the phone, and I didn't see a list, so I don't know how many people here are on the accounting or property management side. But one of the things that I like to point out when I'm doing anything within Sage is, see this more actions? Audit trail. I know that accountants tend to have control issues. I know that I did when I was doing accounting. I want to know who's touched my stuff. Look at that audit trail. I can see if anybody's changed anything on a screen, which is extremely important, right? If something's out of whack, you want to know what happened. So it's just that easy. I just went up there and took a look at that. Now, when I go over here, I'll go back. We'll just go there, leave. So you see, I've got this view here. I can change this view because I just added that. I'm going to create a new view. This goes back to the silos of information, because what if I want my property manager to see all of the vendors that we owe money to for their properties? They need to see a delinquency list or an aging for vendors. So look here, I added that and here it shows up. So I can add that to my screen. And not only can I add it, as they say, but wait, there's more. I can put it where I want it. So right after the vendor name, I can even put filters. So maybe I want just my specialty vendors. I can sort it, and then I can name it. So this is Perry's. This is very powerful. Now I'm gonna put in my Perry view here. There's my specialty. I can sort it for only ones that have construction. I'm not a programmer, but you see how easy it is. So this helps break those silos down that we're talking about. And this also helps your team when they need to see information. They don't have to go digging. And let me tell you, this is very powerful for them because they want to be able to access information quickly and easily. It makes it so much easier for them. And if of course, this is all permissions based, you can't give everybody access to this. We want to make that clear. But when you need to do something, you have the ability to do it within the Sage Intacct framework. There's a lot of other things. I'm very familiar with this product. Some of that you can even change the layout and the entry grids, because maybe someone does property first and then amount, or maybe it's amount and then property when they're keying in information in accounts payable. So there's a lot of really robust and I'll say it, cool functionality that allows your team to do their jobs easily and effortlessly. So, well, I could, of course, as you could imagine, spend all day long going through some of the really cool stuff in the Sage Intacct platform. I think at this point we want to allow some time for questions and answers. So Kevin, I'm gonna kick it back to you.
Awesome, Perry. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. All right. We are ready for some questions and answers. You got the questions, we got the answers. Shanna, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have
out
some
there?
questions on deck. And for our attendees, feel free to put your questions in the chat or feel free to come off mute as well. But I have a couple questions here that came in. The first one is, can the system do budgeting?
You want me to take that, Tom?
Oh, I can take that one, Perry.
Go ahead.
Absolutely, it can do budgeting. You can budget not only to the accounts, but to specific dimensions. So you could have a department budget or a location budget. And it also has multiple budget containers. You can have as many budget containers as you want. So maybe you have a full year budget, but apart from that, you also want to have a mid-year forecast. You can set those as in separate budget containers so that you can display them side by side. And I should add that you can upload your budgets very easily from Excel, or a lot of those marketplace partners that Kevin was showing are budget specialties. So you know, that's what they do, is integrate with Sage Intacct and enable you to build those budgets.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Our second question is, we have a mixed portfolio of retail and multifamily properties. Can we get financial statements that show both asset classes?
I'll take that one, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yes. I love being able to say that. Yes. So based on your entities, you can easily build your financial statements either for separately for the specific property type. You can combine both. You can, I would always recommend when you're doing your chart of accounts that you may want to segment out residential revenue versus commercial revenue, just to get more detailed reporting, but you can very easily do both.
Okay, and I got one more here. Can we get financial statements for just the owner's percentages?
Want me to do that, Tom?
Sure.
Yes, you can do. Well, with the financial statement designer, you have the ability to do calculations. So that's one extremely easy way of doing that. Anything to add, Tom?
Well, yeah, I guess if it's more complex than that, then there is the Sage Intacct allocations module, which can do multi-level allocations to get owners' percentages calculated.
Perfect.
And that's all I got, unless there's any more that people want to ask.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we're at the end here. I just want to thank Perry and Tom. Great presentation, and thanks to everyone who attended. As I mentioned earlier, you'll be getting a copy of the recording and this deck. Thank you. We hope to see you next time.